Those of you who are coming here to this space with us because you yourselves are in a politically divided family, I want to invite you all to just kind of take a deep breath with me. Just like, I am also from a politically divided family. And I have to tell you that you're in the right place. At Braver Angels, we are a collection of these stories and experiences. And we are everyone coming together and stepping up to say, we're going to find a way through. And we are. And we can. One story at a time, one experience at a time. So thank you so much for being here. We're so glad that you can join us. And we're so glad that you can be part of this journey we're all taking together. Now, to set the mood for this workshop, we will open with a song called The Great Divide. Singer-songwriter Judd Caswell entered this song in the Braver Angels songwriting contest. Yes, we have songwriting contests. And the story it tells, we think, is just the perfect frame for our work together today.
Nana was a registered Republican, Pappy was a Democrat for life. You never heard a word of anger pass between that husband and his wife. People kinda wondered why they bothered to even take the time to put on coats and go out to the schoolhouse on a Tuesday night to cancel out their votes. It used to be, there was a time we could agree to disagree. It was before the slide into the Great Divide. Every word I hear about my country feels like gasoline poured on a flame. Seems like everybody's picking sides and picking fights and calling names. Everywhere I look I see the anger. Every conversation fills with trolls. Everybody knows the party lines. We wave our signs, we play our roles. But it used to be, this land of us and them was made for you and me. Guess that died in the Great Divide. And yes, I know you didn't start this fight, and I've heard the other side is more to blame. And I know that there's a wrong and right, and we can't afford to lose this game. We're all losing just the same. 'Cause we get kinda stupid when we're angry. It's easier to hurt a herd that hates. They play us like a sucker on the line each time we rise to click the bait. Oh, but there's a simple, hard solution, older than the oldest grudge you've nursed. Someone's gonna have to lay their sword down, but someone's gonna have to do it first. And it seems to me we've forgotten who's a friend or enemy. And you'll recall that a house divided surely is gonna fall. Fall for spite and fall for pride into the Great Divide. Nana was a registered Republican, Pappy was a Democrat for life.
That was Judd Caswell singing The Great Divide. Today, we have two people joining us, Ben and Celina, who are coming up on a pretty great union. They're engaged to be married. And as we dive into the divide today, alongside them and through their particular story, they're going to be our teachers and our guides, helping all of us learn together. For that, we're incredibly grateful. And we remember that we're here in what we refer to as the Braver Angels way. We're here to listen, not to change minds, and to stay curious. What are we missing? To attempt to understand, not attempt to win. And to have the kinds of conversations that we know speak to the goodwill that flows through all of us, especially maybe when we can't always see it. So today, we're going to learn some communication techniques and perhaps experience some aha moments with Dr. Bill Doherty. Now, Bill is a co-founder of Braver Angels and creator of the Braver Angels workshops. He's also a professor at the University of Minnesota, where he teaches marriage and family therapy. Somebody who's been there and done that, in other words. Bill says, in our workshops, we stress that it is important for families and our country that we try. We have to at least try. That's the importance of this work. There's no way out except together as one heartbeat. Bill is going to work with our engaged couple, Ben and Celina. They have volunteered to tell their story and help all of us learn new ways to manage our political differences for the sake of our relationships. So welcome, you two. Thank you so much for joining us. After Bill, Ben, and Celina talk together for a while, a Braver Angels reflecting team made up of 2 conservatives and 2 liberals will share what they observed, appreciated, and learned from watching these conversations. And with that, I will turn things over to Bill, Ben, and Celina.
All right, thank you, Monica. And hi, Celina and Ben. Somebody just put something into chat that said, are these actors or are they the real thing? And you guys are the real thing. Right. So really, we're just delighted to have you here. And so maybe we could just start with, why did you guys decide to accept this invitation to participate in this conversation today? What were you hoping to get out of this? So either of you could start.
Well, I definitely appreciate the problems of today and the divisiveness of our political climate, and so being able to participate in helping others come to better understanding while also addressing our own issues is
okay. So maybe help the world a little bit, help the country a little bit, and help the 2 of you a little bit. Yeah. Okay. How about you, Celina?
For me, well, Ben was the one who heard about the event initially, and I asked him, like, oh, can we do this but not as a webinar, because it's kind of it's embarrassing, I guess, to be on camera, but yeah, it feels quite vulnerable. But I guess my goal is to, I guess, understand myself better and how I can relate better to Ben and communicate better. I also feel kind of nervous about, like, sometimes the way that I communicate is not ideal, right, in many ways. Yeah, I see this as, like, you know, practice ground with a person that I care about a lot, but also then hopefully I can learn more about myself so that I can improve my future interactions with other people as well.
Okay, yeah, so to help the 2 of you and also help you, there's some things that you wish you maybe did a little different as you communicate. Okay, great. Okay, so why don't we talk about what the challenges are when you guys talk about politics, and for using the Braver Angels language, is my understanding, Ben, you lean more red, and Celina, you lean more blue. That's accurate. Yeah. And so maybe we could talk a little bit about what are the challenges, what happens that is less than satisfying as when you guys talk about politics.
Well, I occasionally rant about the current situations, and that is an expression of frustration, an unproductive one, I would say.
And so when you rant, give us a sense of what you do when you rant.
Well, I don't know that I can demonstrate it, but
yeah, I'm not asking for a demo, but I mean, some people go on for 20 minutes, some people get loud, some, just when you move into rant mode, what do you do?
Celina, would you like to describe?
Well, it's not loud. I think it's just focused and well, Ben is, I think he's very intelligent, right? So he can be, I mean, I wouldn't say it's persuasive, but it's very like, feels maybe a bit like tunnel vision-y. I mean,
Energetic.
energetic. Yeah, it's like he's on, on his soapbox.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's often when something really gets your, gets your goat that's going on in the world, and then you'll, kind of bring it up with some intensity. Okay. And then what happens on your end, or to give me your answer to the question, Celina, about how things are challenging between the two of you around politics?
Well, I feel very disconnected, right? Because there are some maybe axioms on which we disagree, or maybe the conclusions. It's not always clear to me. And yeah, I feel like I withdraw more. And because I feel that my arguments are less rational, they're more emotionally based. So then I will my attacks are more like ad hominem.
And by that you mean?
Like, like passive aggressive, or like I can't poke at the rationality of his arguments, but I could stab him in the ribs a bit.
Okay, so, well, thank you both being really honest about this. So we are a ranter and a stabber here. So thank you for that honesty. So what do you do when, so what you're saying, Celina, is that you feel kind of overwhelmed with the argument, the kind of rationale of the argument, and then you'll poke him. And how do you poke?
How do I poke? Well, I guess in our last conversation, I learned Ben brought to my attention that sometimes I will say like, well, I don't know if I want to be with a person that's like this, or I'll say, what is like, this tells me something about your character that I don't like, or something like this.
Yeah. So you make it personal at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Ben, you're kind of wanting to, engage the issue with some intensity, right? And Celina, you'll feel like you disagree with some aspects of what he's saying, but don't feel you can kind of make your case, that you can't match him point by point. So then you'll kind of say, basically, what's wrong with you, buddy? Right? I mean, some version of the criticism of him, and of wondering, whether he's right for you when it gets bad enough.
Is that accurate, do you think, what I said?
I can give another, I think so, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And another example is, there was one case where I was traveling away, and there was so I was in Texas, and I open carried in Texas, and
open carried a gun, just so.
Yeah, that's right. And Celina, when well, I sent her a photo that included this because I wanted to be sort of upfront about it. And Celina said basically that I didn't care about what she thought. That was her her accusation.
Okay. And so at that moment, how did that feel to you then, Ben, when you got that message?
Well, it's difficult to engage with that because I have my reasons for doing what I do, and part of my sense was that if I am elsewhere, if I'm in another location where we're like separated by hundreds or thousands of miles, then she should be more at ease with what I choose to do in that context.
So you felt kind of put off or offended?
Yeah, that it was. I couldn't understand the justification for her demanding that I do something differently than what I was doing.
Right, and confused. You're confused. And so, Celina, with that incident, then what was happening for you when you got that message from him about him carrying? What happened in your feelings?
Well, it's, of course, every interaction occurs within a context or like a shared background. So
Sure.
the background is that, I have asked many times for Ben not to, well, I have expressed many times that I don't that I don't endorse this, that I don't really like it. And of course he continues to do it because it's, it's important for him. And I feel like I have no choice but just to accept, whatever Ben does. And I feel like, in some ways I compromise on some things that I do for Ben, and I feel upset that in this important thing for me, he's not willing to compromise. So
Yeah.
I feel like my desires are unseen or like invalid or something.
Yeah. So you feel some resentment at that point. That he sort of, from your point of view, dug in on something that's really important to you that you wish he would adapt on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And just to go back to often how the conversations go. What's it like for you, Celina, when Ben gets on a roll with something? When he goes on with some length and some intensity. How do you feel at those moments about, or in the conversation? What happens inside you?
Yeah, I think it feels kind of personal in a way, because I ask, like, well, what is motivating him to communicate this to me specifically? And I think that's probably, I don't know, but this is my sense of what's the biggest divide between us. Like for Ben, it's very much like these concepts exist very much on the ideological plane, and they're kind of like divorced from reality. And for me, it's always kind of personal and like,
okay.
And so when I argue with him, it's always personal. When he argues with me, it's always like ideological. Yeah, so I think it feels kind of accusatory, maybe,
Okay,
like, oh, even though maybe it's not an accusation of me, but it feels that way.
That's how it feels. Whether
yeah, and I would say that's kind of fair. Like that, I am when I'm frustrated with this sort of current events. In some ways, I'm frustrated at anyone who supports the current events that I'm able to send a being.
Yeah, you can't get at that politician you dislike, but there's Celina. Okay. Well, that's I think that's a helpful insight. So we earlier we talked about you doing a little demo of a conversation. So it's not just abstract, and you thought that that gun rights, gun control would be a good topic. And so why don't you look at each other at this point, not me, and just spend a few minutes doing the conversation as it ordinarily goes. And then we'll kind of unpack it a little bit and see what we can learn. And I think when we talked about this, Celina, you said that often you might bring it up around guns. So if you could just launch the conversation with Ben and you guys talk for a few minutes.
Okay. Well, I just want to start by clarifying, and I think you know this kind of, that my issue is less around like gun control, but more around like gun culture and like what sort of example I want to set to the world. And when I say I, this also includes you sort of by extension, because I mean, if we're going to become a better union in a sense. Okay, but I'm not being argumentative now.
So what the example are you talking about?
The example, like I don't understand why you want to set the example of that carrying guns is like a force for good. Like that just feels very illogical. I don't know. I don't see it that way.
Sure.
Mm,
Well, okay, so I could make a case. I could say, look at Australia, and they're currently being abused by their police and beaten in the streets, and this follows shortly after, like a few decades after they gave up their firearms rights. That was in the 90s. They gave them up, and now they're being oppressed.
But the thing is, I'm not advocating for gun confiscation. I just don't want to promote a culture in which, we are brandishing our guns or carrying our guns outright. Like that, this is when we first encounter a person, that this is how, we present ourselves to them. Like it's immediately you're like taking a stance of you're a threat to me, or I feel threatened by you, therefore I need to protect myself from you. Does that make sense?
I see how that could be off-putting, yeah.
So why do you want to present yourself to the world in this way?
So I think I see it as more a general thing where like we have a responsibility to look after our neighbors, and if we're able to defend them in the case where there is a need, right? And this is so as an example, in the Sikh faith, they have one of the objects they're expected to carry is a dagger, which is sort of symbolic of their responsibility to look after their neighbor and protect people from being oppressed. And I think of it not as an affront to people, but as a demonstration of a capability, which says, here I am, I'm here doing good, and if necessary, I will also defend you.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you for, how is this typical or not typical of how you would regularly talk?
I don't know that it was it wasn't particularly heated in the way that it sometimes gets,
Sure. Yeah. And when you get heated, just give me a little sense of how it heats up. What happens? What do you each do?
I think on this issue, the heat mostly comes from Celina. I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
you don't think so?
Well, you may not agree. You may not agree on that, Celina.
Both of us. I definitely have a part of it.
Yeah. So when you get heated, Celina, what do you do?
What do I do? Well, kind of what I already said, I'll
kind of expressions of alienation,
what?
You don't care what I think. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Does that sound right? Okay, so more personal. And then when you get more heated, Ben, what do you do?
I just rant.
You what?
Well, I'll rant. So
You'll rant. Okay. Does that sound right, Celina? Or anything else you want to add to what he does? Does that sound right? I'm
That
just
sounds right. Yeah, that sounds
yeah. I
right.
mean, he commented on you. I wanted to give you the chance to comment on what he does.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so let me ask the two of you then around guns, just to talk a little bit about what life experiences have influenced your beliefs and attitudes and values about guns. So what life experiences do you bring? You're not policy wonks discussing gun control legislation. It's personal. I can feel that already. And so Ben, how about you? Just what life experiences?
Sure. So my family did not keep guns at home, but I was in the Boy Scouts, and Boy Scouts, in summer camps and things like that, I learned to shoot rifle and shotgun in my teens or earlier. And then I didn't own a gun until later. At one point, I entered into a raffle, and I won a gun through a raffle. And that was for me, it was a very I mean, it's an emotional object, right? There's a lot of emotional intensity associated with the object. And and it took me some time to kind of get used to it and to relate to it as it is. And so I sympathize from that respect. But I guess my general point is that I've had a lot of experience throughout life, and also I take some pride. Like I'm proud of my shooting. If I go to a range, I think I may be a viable competitor if I did competitive shooting. I haven't never attempted that, but I feel like that is a talent which I should. That means if anyone should carry, I should be more willing to carry because of this.
Of the talent, yeah. And what you talked about emotion. So pride is one. And with your life experience around guns, what are some other emotions you feel about it? You said it was an emotional object.
Oh, well, in that, just the idea of the risk associated with it. So like,
okay,
okay. An error or like this, you could really hurt yourself, and people certainly have.
Yeah. And so just a little bit more about what of your life, your experiences have led you to feel strongly about the importance of people being able to have weapons, guns.
Yeah, so I guess I'm I'm emotionally responsive to the idea of being oppressed, or being more so like being told what to do, and that is, like when I see cases where someone victimizes someone else, that upsets me, and that is I don't think I would love if no one had ever experienced that, because someone was always ready there to defend in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a pretty core value to you, about being prepared to defend.
Yeah.
In a world that can be pretty risky for folks. Okay. And Celina, how about you? What life experiences have informed your values, feelings, and approach to guns?
Well, my family is very much more on the like hippie, free-spirited side. So, and we're also Hispanic, so we see other people as like potential social encounter, not necessarily a threat, maybe. And I didn't grow up around guns. I have shotguns as an adult, and it can be fun to go to a range and shoot. And so I guess I can see, the use, and that perhaps in some situations the need for a gun. Like sorry, that's my dog.
No problem.
But I don't understand why that has to be like a critical facet of culture. I don't understand why it has to be elevated to this.
Yeah, so staying just with your life experiences.
Okay.
It's a piece of life, a small piece of life.
Yeah.
And not something that was really big. Not a lot of conversation about it. And it represents maybe more sort of an attitude of a fear of threat, and you didn't grow up with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I appreciate your getting below the surface of what you bring to the conversation. And then another thing that happens in your conversations is that you each, I think, unintentionally bring something that overwhelms the other person. So if Ben, you get on a roll because you're upset about something political, and as you said, and Celina is the closest one around who may hold that view, your temptation then is to respond to her not as your your partner here, your fiance, you're somebody who's so you're close to, but as a sort of a representative, a symbol, okay? When that happens, it's likely to become a disconnecting conversation because she's not really just her at that point, she's her. Be like if you had two different religions, you know, and she represented the other religion, you know, you're Northern Ireland and she's Protestant, you're Catholic, whatever, okay? And in an intimate relationship, that's bound to cause some difficulties. It's bound to be somewhat alienating. Does that make sense, Ben? It's just bound to. Because you at that point you lose the individuality of this particular person, and then so there's two things. One is the sort of attitude of okay, I got to get this out, and then you know, sometimes your style, which can maybe work in some situations of like talking with intensity and you're kind of a rational guy and let me line it up and let me tell you about what happens in this foreign country or whatever. That also, given how Celina is in the world and given her personality, that tends to overwhelm her. Okay, it's sort of like, let me give you 6 facts and 3 bits of documentation. That tends to kind of overwhelm her or put her back on her heels. Does that make sense, Ben?
It does.
It's so there's 2 ways if you get going that it's bound to not end up. You're bound to not end up in a good place.
Mm.
And then similarly for Celina, you put Ben back on his heels when you make it very personal, when you suggest that there's something maybe wrong with his values, and that maybe he's not even the right person for you. So that's a sort of a big that's a big deal, because that sort of in some ways puts the relationship on the line in a particular conversation. And it comes, what you said was, it comes out of you feeling on the defense, feeling frustrated, and then in your mind it gets to be, oh my goodness, are we so different? Are we so different? Are we a we? Right? Are we a we who can be in the world together? Right? So you go to a scary place at those moments, right? That, like, oh my goodness, this becomes like a threatening conversation, and then from that, then you know that comes out, and you put him back on his heels. So you both end up back on your heels, and that hurts your relationship. So each give me some reaction to what I'm saying. So Ben, give me a reaction to.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so my I guess my enthusiasm, my desire. So like I'm not in a debate with Celina. You know, I'm not trying to win an argument. If my enthusiasm is alienated, then I can pull back and kind of make my points more gently.
Yeah, because she's your partner here. You know, she's not somebody in public who you're clashing swords with around an issue, and you want to make it easier for her to engage with you. Celina, what's your reaction on your end to what I'm offering to you?
Well, it's difficult for me to not go to that place of, as you were saying, like of feeling like the relationship is under threat, because I feel like we have a big commitment to each other. To use like not very articulate language, but and in some ways, like we will, if we like choose to stay together, we will need to act as one entity in some way. Like if we have children, you know, I think in my own parents, I saw them not politically necessarily, but like in their style of child rearing, they had very different opinions, and it was very confusing for the children. And I don't know, in some ways I would like to feel seen and validated by my partner, and I hear his arguments, and it makes a lot of sense to me why this is important, but there's somehow like someplace like it doesn't, like there's a disconnect between, you know, the argument and then my emotion. So of course I know that emotions can't always be trusted, right? But there's some like information within me that is telling me something, and I don't know how to express that without attacking the other person. So I think
this is something you said you want to learn more about in your life. So I really appreciate your openness on that. And I also want to appreciate that you know, you want to feel a sense, I'm sure you'd feel the same way, Ben, that there's enough commonality of, you know, values and so on, that to make a life together. That's important. What I'm saying, Celina, is that when that idea of how compatible we are, when that bleeds into a whole bunch of conversations, it makes it just, the lights go off in the conversation. It's important sometimes to have larger conversations about who you guys are, your future. You brought up kids, for example. You know, at a point at which you're raising kids, you have to have enough commonality of values about how you're going to raise them, you know, so that they're not feeling like they're being pulled apart. That would be an example. And that's true for every couple, because there's no couple that has identical values and approaches. That's more a question of your ultimate confidence that you can work things out. You know, that when you get to those points and you get to those decisions. And so it's important to, you know, to have conversations about your future, about how you might work out compromises. What I'm saying right now is that when you do that in a sort of defense mode, because you're feeling threatened in a conversation about a political issue, it doesn't work. It sort of it adds so much intensity to the conversation that it's bound, the lights go off. Give me some feedback about what I'm saying, about how that makes sense or not. Or do you want me to? So I think it's you, Celina. No, I'm talking. No, it's you, Celina, that I'm focused on right now. So give me a sense. I'll say it again. That
I know.
Okay, what's hard? Yeah, go for it. So I'm just asking for some sense of your feedback about what I just said. What makes sense? What's confusing? What doesn't make sense?
It makes sense. And I can see how I don't need to inject this into every minor conversation. And I think maybe what's unclear to me is, just maybe within my own life, is like what's the line between the political and the material, right? Because in some ways the political is an expression of our underlying values or priorities, not necessarily values, but maybe priorities. And I think that we can, I feel like we have sometimes political conversations that are less heated. Maybe, is that true or not?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But because this one has kind of concrete material consequences, like between us.
Sure, yeah. So unlike the general political questions, it's like, this is something that exists in the home, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the guns, okay, that makes sense. The guns are, you know, if you have them in the home. So that makes sense. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to think about trying a conversation here in which you both try to not do in the conversation, try to do something other than what you the bleeding into the conversation of the bigger issues. So Celina, you would try to engage around the issue of guns that you have views about, and that Ben does. Listening to him, trying to express your views, and not getting into the kind of what kind of guy are you, or what's our future look like. That would be what you willing to try that?
I mean, I don't know what I have to say if I don't say those things.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Well, what you could do then, so thank you, you're being really honest about it. What you could do is to listen to his views and try to understand them better.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And then you could express what you did earlier when you talked about how you just think in general about guns, and how in your life, what they have meant in your life. Just as you did before, because I thought what you said was really nice. What's that? And then Ben, what you would
I was thinking that.
I'm sorry. Go for it, Ben.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think we're having a little cut off.
Just that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, so for Ben, what you would try to do in the reprise of the, we had a little disconnect on the video here is what happened. If you could maybe open the topic in a more easygoing way,
Sure.
and be curious about what she feels about it. So in other words, she's your partner here, somebody you love. She's not your fellow debater. And she doesn't represent anything else but herself. And you happen to maybe agree or disagree on this, but why don't you get into the topic from the point of view of lowering your intensity, and then you join it any way you like, Celina, but not with the intensity of what the heck is this all about. Okay, and just give it a try. Sound worth doing? Oops, I think.
All right, so that sounds good.
Okay.
It's not working.
Yeah, we're having a little video disconnect here, but I think we're okay.
No, it's our internet.
Is your
Okay.
good? Yeah, so turn to her and just try to start the conversation in a different way for a few minutes.
So I think one of the things we're talking about is what sort of society do we want to live in, and like what is our role in that society? Like how do we participate in one? So what I hear you saying is that you want to be kind of a representative of like a peaceful lifestyle where everyone's relaxed and at peace with their friends, and so they're disarmed in that way, and that leaves space for kind of openness.
Thanks for validating.
Sure. And what I worry about in that situation is that I don't think it's ever anywhere the case that there are no people who are there. I think there are always people who want to take advantage of other people. You may not encounter them day to day, but they exist in society, and that if people are disarmed, they leave themselves open to being taken advantage of, basically.
Has it happened to you that you've been taken advantage of by a person who was armed, or not necessarily with a firearm, but any sort of thing, or that you've witnessed people be taken advantage of?
I have not, but I know the examples out there. I know that there's a certain amount of criminality. You can see evidence of it online, for example. There are like recorded encounters, and so in sort of the same way, I mean, in a similar way, I look at myself as purveying peace, but purveying a peace that by being able to respond to and intervene if there were some kind of attack.
Is that, well, I've already asked you this question in the past, but why do you take it upon yourself as your responsibility to be that agent of peace?
I think because I'm able, and that people who are able should take that on if they feel willing and able.
Well, I'll just say that I appreciate that you take on this role, but sometimes it seems to me that, like, I don't know, like I see it kind of, maybe I'm misjudging it, but like as an extension of like a video game figurine, you know, like like you're the hero of the story in a sense, and like you want to take on this role, which is admirable in some ways, but I'm not sure if it's realistic.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's certainly the case that I may never encounter a situation where defensive use of arms would be necessary. On the other hand, I can imagine a scenario where I am in such a situation but unable to respond, and that to me would be a devastating situation, because then I would feel that everything that became of everyone else had been my fault, because I had not been able to do what I am able to do.
So would you say that you typically, well, do you feel responsible for those around you? Like if someone around you falters or fails, you feel that is a responsibility?
I think we should help if we can.
Okay. Well, that was a different kind of conversation. And you know, more to be talked about and so on. But what felt different, and what did you see different in this conversation you just had? Either of you can go. What was different here?
Well, I appreciate that Ben, well, first he started by validating my perspective, so that made me feel
that helped a lot.
Yeah, and I appreciate that instead of talking about, you know, the data or the statistics, he talked about his own desires in the world.
Yeah.
And
That
helped
made
me
it,
to understand him more and like empathize with him more.
yeah, and that you softened there, Celina. I mean, when he started that way, you softened. Your back wasn't up, and you inquired to understand. What was it? What did you see different, Ben, in that conversation?
No, I definitely felt differently about it. I did speak more personally in terms of my emotional experience and the issue.
Yeah, and you saw a different result. Yeah. And I guess, and we're going to invite our reflecting team on soon. But one of the key things for me is a conversation between two people who really love each other, like you do, is always personal. It's always personal. It can be other things too. I mean, you're both smart people. You can talk about the world, and you can talk about lots of things. But there's always a personal element, and so keeping that in mind and showing curiosity and is huge. It's a huge thing. All right, so you guys you've done your work here. All right, now other people have to come on the screen here and share some reflections. So I really appreciate everything you've done here and your openness and candor and vulnerability. So so if we could then move to our reflecting team. Come on the screen with us. Ta-da! And I think we're going to have them be on the full screen, right, Randy? Not just up little boxes at the door. Or maybe it's my view I have to change. Aha! I changed mine to gallery. So Celina and Ben, are you on gallery view? Can you see everybody in their full? So
No, we can. Yeah.
now you can. Good, because the team was just up. Was just on little faces at the top, and I think we're waiting for Liz to come on the screen. There she is. All right. Okay, guys. So we have some people who are liberal conservative, and they're going to just share some reflections and reactions with Celina and Ben. And we're going to first start with Dee. Would you get us going here?
Well, I'm actually feeling pretty emotional at this point, having listened to you. I first of all want to let you guys know I so admire that you are dealing with these kinds of differences now. It's a wonderful time to be sorting things out and talking about it, because it just is such a wonderful foundation, because all couples are different, right? Been married 47 years, so I know all couples are different. It's how you work with the differences that makes the difference between a good marriage. And you guys are heading for the best kind by working with your differences. One of the things that I really was impressed with was how well, Ben, you listened when Celina talked about the need to feel validated and her concern about, are you going to make a good marriage together? You started that conversation by saying, I think we're talking about what kind of world do we want to see? And that's the level at which your values really do meet. And Celina heard that and felt validated. Yeah, that's it. What kind of world do we want? And Celina, what you went into, which I thought was wonderful, as Ben revealed himself, was you started asking some real questions of curiosity to find out more. I was listening to the questions real carefully because I wanted to make sure they weren't gotcha questions. They weren't. They were real questions of curiosity. And the last thing is, I noticed that as you talked to each other the second time, the first time you weren't even looking at each other. The second time you were gazing into each other's eyes, and the more you talked, I saw the gaze get deeper. And I was just, I was very impressed with your work. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dee. Liz.
First of all, I just want to, like Dee, thank you guys both for participating in this and putting yourselves out there. I see that was really, really a difficult thing to do. And I so appreciate the opportunity to observe your guys' conversation and interactions. I appreciated your personal reflections back and forth, and the ability at the end. I thought it was a good thing that you were able to engage each other on equal grounds, sort of, and that at the beginning I saw Celina was making personal statements about what she wanted and what she saw for her family's future and your guys' future as a couple. And then Ben was sort of responding to that with statistics, and it felt as though there was an imbalance of communication happening. And then at the end, Ben responded with what he wanted for your guys' family as a couple moving forward, and what he saw and why he felt the way that he felt, instead of answering your concern with statistics. I thought that was good. And I appreciated your willingness, Celina, to share your emotions and to push through your nervousness on screen. I know it has to be intimidating to know that there's an audience there. I imagine you can't divorce yourself from that knowledge. And I really, really appreciate you putting in the effort on that and trying to have an intimate conversation and engaging in a really challenging conversation with your partner that you love in that way. It was really special to watch.
Okay, thank you, Liz. John.
Hi, John Schwenkler, Atlanta, Georgia. First off, I just love listening to Bill and seeing the care that he has in paraphrasing back and checking for agreement. He's just such an expert. Celina, at the very beginning, you mentioned the word vulnerability, and both of you demonstrated that superbly. And that's with like 200 people watching. I mean, I can't imagine what it feels like. Your honesty is just unparalleled. Your openness is amazing. You're both very articulate, thoughtful. It was very touching. But for me, the aha moment was after you'd done your first conversation, and then Bill came back and asked about your life experiences. What had led you to your different perspectives, the life experiences. And then all of a sudden, for me, I'm just talking about my impact, the light bulb went off. I could finally understand, particularly with the person that has a different perspective than mine, where you were coming from, because I just didn't have a clue. So you really helped me as a listener. Can't imagine how you helped your spouse when you were so open in sharing that. And then, Bill has these clarifying questions, and he just set you up for when you did your second demo. And now it was just as different as night and day. You were validating each other. You were now, without any challenge, sharing your deepest experiences. Quite a stellar example to me. I hope to be able to take it back to use with my wife, Alice Murray. And then these questions of curiosity, of clarification were just stellar. You were so authentic. It was so real. I want to thank you very much.
All right, Franklin, take us home.
All right. Well, I will say the one thing that watching the two of you reminded me of is that how difficult, the closer you are to a person, the more difficult these conversations are. Having this conversation with someone in a line at Walmart is a lot easier than someone that you're really close with. And I would say for me, as I watched you, to use John's language, the aha moment came in the second conversation when you all got to the point where you realized that beyond the gun issue itself, you were talking about the same things. The same things were important to you. You started talking about things like family and future and things like that. And you were talking about it from a slightly different perspective because you have a different perspective on that particular issue. But you were talking about why those things were important. And again, you were looking at each other. You were actually hearing and listening to what the other was saying. And in the end, of course, both of you, you're going to have your different perspectives, but to be able to see that even through that, the main issue, you were both talking about that main issue that was important, and that was each other and family and future. And I think as I reflect on that, just to a lot of times to remember in these contentious and these big, what seems like big disagreements, that the center of it all comes from the relationship that we have with each other, and that it's family and we love each other. So I'm not gonna get too much more sappy, so I'm gonna just stop there and I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Franklin. So Celina and Ben, just any final comments from each of you about what you're taking with you from this time we've spent here together?
Well, I really appreciate the kind words from everyone. It brings some context to our disagreements or arguments, and yeah, I feel grateful for this opportunity, and yeah, I just want to say that I value Ben very much, and I appreciate that he was the one who brought me here in the first place. So yeah, thanks for watching our conversations.
Okay, and Ben?
Yeah, I think you got at kind of the nature of what was going on and what goes on in these situations and these conversations. And like, I didn't really appreciate how I was provoking the response that I was experiencing. And that is, so that's helpful.
Yeah. Well, and just to echo what our reflector said, it's a gift to all of us. It's everybody here. It's a gift to the nation. I mean, Ben, you started, the first words you said why you were here. You wanted to do something for the country, and that's what that's what Brave Angels is about. And I think you guys did. I think you guys did. And I appreciated in the interview that you were there. You were honest. When Celina, you said, I don't know how to do it any other way. Okay, that was, for me, that's real. Okay, I don't want people just making stuff up. Okay, and then Ben, I saw a shift happening in you, even in the earlier conversation when you said, "Oh, that makes sense to me." When you connected, and then later on, you connected even more. So I have confidence that if you guys could take a little opportunity like this and do something that well with it, that you can work this out. You can figure this out. Maybe if you can, we all can.
Thank you so much, Bill. It was really nice it was an honor to speak with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Monica, come back on screen. And there you are.
Hello. Yes, my goodness. I mean, whew, riffing on all that's already been said, I was just sitting here rooting for you guys. Just, yeah, listen, validate. Yeah, oh, cool. It was like, yes, to see the connection happen. I can't tell you how inspiring it was, how illuminating it was, particularly because, our world in some ways only knows how to speak from a place of division. We're trying to learn how to speak from a place of seeking that connection. And we don't have the best models out there, right? But I feel like you two served as a model today. And I want to pick out one question, Bill, that you asked during the conversation that I thought was the question. And you said, that Ben and Celina are sort of thinking sometimes about this question: are we a we who can be in the world together? What an honest, difficult question. And I realized that's the question we're all asking, right? Like, across this country, we're all asking if we can be a we together. And so you've answered today that yes, we can. It'll take work, right? It'll take some new habits, some uncomfortable moments, but goodness. So thank you so much.